It's great to be with all of you here. It's great to share again with Rob. And I can see that Amanda Chikundozi, she's here in the room as well. So there is a tiny Nottingham Research Leadership reunion here. And when Rob, he imposed the challenge of bringing and share with you, accomplished leadership experts. So what am I going to share with these wonderful people? So it's just the story, the way the think process, and hoping to learn a lot from you as well. I'm talking in both my capacities, I believe, as the director of the Brazilian Biosciences National Laboratory, but also as founder and director of Silvina Science and Communication, which is a project that I would love to give more energy to, and I need to be very, very selective with the projects I can get involved with, and you're going to hopefully understand a little bit more why throughout the presentation. So that's where I am. So if you can see through my window, there's a bit of greenery there, some plants. So that's the Brazilian Center for Research in Energy Materials. It's a complex of national laboratories. We've got the only synchrotron light source in Latin America, one of the 3 most advanced synchrotron light sources in the world, which is really important for material science in general, from the biosciences all the way to hard physics. We've got, as I said, 4 national laboratories, the nanotechnology one, the biorenewables one, the synchrotron light source national laboratory, and my center, which is the Brazilian Biosciences National Laboratory. Our activities are split in 4 areas. Something that's very odd, all our facilities are open free of charge to any researcher in the world. So that's something quite odd. We've got a very strong in-house research and development program, support for innovation, and the 4th axis of activities, training, education, extension, as we now also have a new tiny university that is our School of Geeks like us. That's the Illum School of Science, which offers a science technology bachelor degree, very interdisciplinary. So that's the structure of the center. I'm not going to go through too much, but we are 1,700 people split among all these different areas. And from the national laboratories, as you can see, I'm a bit of an oddity there. And then when people say, oh, how is it to be the woman or the first Black person to be part of the directorship of the center? I used to say, that's not the problem. The problem is that I'm a biologist, not a theoretical physicist, just like all of them. But obviously, it denotes something that I'm going to talk a little bit more in my presentation. On top of things, we are always building something new, and that's the Orion project, which is the first maximum containment. So it's biosafety level 4 laboratory in Latin America, which is something unthinkable if we think of all the emerging pathogens that we've got, particularly in this region. So it's the first one in the world connected to synchrotron light sources, which is going to allow us to see and to observe, to study infections, particularly those that require high and maximum containment in a way that's not available in the world right now. And here in my patch, when I arrived in July 2023, we had a very broad remit and a very broad mission, that is science technology to study human health. And I said, it's not good enough. We need to in my opinion, and here I would love to hear from you as well. So we've got a new working mission that contextualize this center, where it is in the world, and the moment we are living as well. So our working mission is to use integrative biology, that's what we do, to understand health and disease in the Anthropocene, supporting then the development of healthcare solutions. It's a bit long, might look a bit cumbersome, but it says what we do. And that's really important when we've got such a competitive ecosystem like the biomedical ecosystem across the globe, but also in Brazil. But why are we here today? So as you can see, I never lived in the real world. So I only ever worked at universities or research centers. We are very sheltered, or we pretend we are sheltered from what is happening outside. And in science, I used to tell my researchers here, and I used to say that in Nottingham as well, always be afraid of someone that worked really hard for very little money, because they are getting their reward from something else. And as the academia has this thing of, oh, in academia we do no wrong, bad practices persist. And I think that we've got across the globe, and our colleague in the US, I need to remember the name, Eugene, he mentioned that, what we are going through in the US, we see this wave coming back, and we know it's a wave, we know it's going to reach all of us in different ways. Actually, the wave has been there for a long time. Maybe we pretend it was not happening and we didn't want to see. And I think that a core element of what we're going through is the struggle, is the hoarding versus sharing. If you come from our society and all the sectors of our society, they replicate what I believe is this determination to hoard. We accumulate, even if we don't know why we're using and if it's good at all. It's all about accumulation. And we are not very good at sharing. We are not taught to share. And I think that when it comes to leadership and when it comes to in these environments, like the academic ones, it's a very good snapshot, and it allows us to perform some experiments to understand this phenomena. So here is Bruno Lemaitre. He wrote this book called An Essay on Science and Narcissism. So you can see from the photo, it's not difficult to spot who is the group lead in this photo, isn't it? And today we try to be a bit more inventive and pretend to be cool, but it's still a bit much like this. The scientists, the academic, they want to be, I'm different, I'm better, I'm in a higher place, I lead. And it manifests in many different ways. And this researcher, Bruno Lemaitre, he came to think about that, because he says, and who are we to judge, that he was scooped the Nobel Prize by his former supervisor. And he went into, so he needed to, if he won the Nobel Prize, probably he wouldn't reflect about these things. So he started to reflect about these things the moment that he lost something that he thought he deserved. And I think that the narcissism and leadership, they unfortunately still go hand in hand. And I am a true believer that leadership is service, that we earn more as leaders because we've got more responsibilities. And that's something very difficult to think, particularly in the academic space, in research spaces. So talking about this hoarding versus sharing struggle, I think that we are talking about power in the end of the day. And alluding again to what Eugene shared with us, that's one of our collaborators, Amanda and I, we worked very close with Frank Tuit and other colleagues at the University of Connecticut. And he said something that I thought it was spot on, that, power is in the center. When there is diversion of people, they congregate, they start to be effective, create effective solutions to the problems they face, which always mean sharing power. And those that hold power will reclaim that power. Very usually they do that in a very violent way. And I think that epitomizes all the conflicts that we face in the world. But, believe me, it is all replicated in the perceived innocent world of academia. All these reflections, obviously, they beg a disclaimer. You're looking at me. I am a Black woman in Latin America. So despite that I've got many of the esteem indicators, and I always say that receiving the L'Oreal Prize Women in Science, just like being vegan, sooner or later, you let people know that you got one, that you are one. That's not the whole story in my case. So there's a trigger alert here. Please close your eyes if you prefer. It's nothing too graphic, but can be disturbing. So if you think about someone like me being in a place like Brazil, we can't dissociate that from the journey of my ancestors. So that's the journey of my ancestors. That's how I reached this land. I am a historical accident. I'm not here. History was not, did not contemplate that I would be here talking to colleagues across the globe about leadership. And and I'm so glad that it contaminates the way I think and the way I act and the way I lead the organization I'm in charge now. But I had a wonderful life. I was very lucky. And that's why I say I was an accident. I am an accident because I am the offspring of people that reinvented themselves and gave me the most amazing childhood, that's where the innovation is. The innovation is in my ancestors, not in myself. I'm just I took advantage of their hard labor. So very amazing life in UK, very amazing life in Brazil, where I made the friends that we've got here in the room right now. And I had the audacity of having a child while I was doing my BSc and managed to have a career in science and academia and research anyway. So that's my life. And I'm a biologist as well, as I said before. And I believe in what is fair and correct, but I don't think that systems, they change because that's the right kind thing to do. So I need interaction. I'm feeling very lonely now, and I want to do, let me see time, I'm going to whiz through here now. I need your help. What's the difference between these two images? Please share with me. What do you think? I see a body of water, or I see green stuff. Are they identical, you think? Hi, I can see that you are muted, so go on.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Well, it's a different perspective.
It's a different perspective. That's very correct. Do you see any other difference that you might have spotted?
This is Eugene. One looks like it occurred naturally. The other looks as if it was planned because the trees and things seem to be in rows in the one on the right.
Yes, isn't so. Um, and Kai, you're absolutely right with the perspective, but Eugene, he brought this other layer of complexity to the experiment. So on the left, we've got a native forest, and on the right, we've got a monoculture. And although from the top it's all green and lovely, when you go down to the ground level, it's very different, isn't it? You've got one on the left that is very thriving, very exuberant, and very diverse. And on the right, we've got one that is very bare. And we know that ecologists call the landscape on the right green deserts. That's where you've got this massive, extensive monoculture. And eucalyptus is one of the most damaging monocultures out there. Eugene, thank you very much for spotting that. So that's nature. And nobody, apart from, maybe the new president of the United States, the new old president, claims that biodiversity is not important. So why diversity in its broader sense is not important in communities, in companies, and in academia? And I'm going to talk about what I know. There was this book launched 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, called The Invisible Woman, saying that we live in a world designed by men for men. And I believe, and I've been using this slide for a long time, Amanda probably saw it many, many times, but I think it's still fit, because I think that this book was launched outdated. It's a very specific, the world was designed for a very specific kind of person. It was not designed for the whole world. And it means that we've got a world that has been designed for less than 9% of the world population. It can't go right. It doesn't matter who this demographics is. We design solutions that are not fit for purpose for all the environments, for all the people that live here. And maybe that's why we don't have a very effective solution for those diseases that do not cross the equator line, like malaria. Malaria kills Black babies. If you need to say, who does malaria kill? Malaria kills Black babies in sub-Saharan Africa. That's it. We don't have a very effective solution for this. We developed a very effective solution for COVID in record time for humanity. Would be even quicker if science didn't receive all the cuts that we know it receives from time to time. But it was only developed so quickly because it dared to cross the equator line. And another example, and I think it's a great invention, is that we can't cure malaria, but we've got an amazing solution for erectile dysfunction. As a pharmacologist, that's something. It says something about the world we live in, about our priorities, what they lay, and it's impossible to disconnect this from all the other crises we've got in the world. There is a motivation, there is a way of working, there is a way of thinking, and to be fair, the demographics of the person itself is insignificant. What is really important is the way the system works. So I think that we do need to address the intersectional failures of the past. And the research space has a great opportunity to do so. I think that we need to rethink excellences and that we demand reinvention of research, innovation, entrepreneurial ecosystems. I think that's really, I think that's the challenge of our time. So bringing back to our reality here, as I said before, we are geeks. And as geeks, we think that we don't need to think about the social side of things. We are isolated here in this bubble that is the National Center for Research in Energy and Materials, where we've got the most advanced research infrastructure in South America. What we do can do no harm, can do no wrong. And it doesn't matter. I don't need to think about the problems in Brazil and the problems of our times and the problems of the global South. And we've been challenging that. So that's one project that started before I arrived, but we managed to increase exponentially, which is our drug discovery platform focusing on the discovery of drugs, of biomolecules and potential drugs from the Brazilian biodiversity. Brazil, alongside Indonesia, hosts the most huge number of species, mega biodiverse country. And as a pharmacologist, I remember the first two things that my supervisor told me when I was starting. First, never do experiments with female rats because they've got too many hormones and they mask the results of my experiments. The other is never use natural products. These things are totally non-specific. It's just antioxidant stuff that is there, and it means nothing. We know the pharmaceutical companies, they have a push for synthetic compounds, forgetting that 65 to 70% of all drugs that we've got in the market today are either derived or are natural products. So using the ability that we've got to see the molecules inside the molecular targets, that's where they act in our body, we are reinventing our way of doing drug discovery here in Brazil. And we do that not only from the comfort of our amazing infrastructure, but co-creating with communities that have always been overseen. So that's a beautiful project that we've got with colleagues from the north and northeast of Brazil, working with these women that collect this little nut called licuri. Licuri is the fruits of a palm tree that grow in the deserts of Brazil. We've got a desertic part of Brazil, very poor for obvious reasons. So these women, they are survivors. They have children, the husbands go, they stay there by themselves to raise their families, and that's how they do that. And these little nuts produce an oil that has been used traditionally for centuries, and we managed to define ways of really dissecting the compounds in these in the licuri oil and fruit. Our colleagues from the Federal University of Pernambuco in the Northeast that were more closer to them, they filed a patent, so promoting a new way to share benefits, having a very direct effect on this particular SDG that's responsible consumption and production. But actually, there are so many others that are unleashed when we combine the traditional knowledge, the hard work of these women with the highest level of scientific rigor to the same project. So these women, they are co-authors of the patents that we've been filing since then. You know, another thing that is that people say it's an oxymoron is traditional knowledge and science technology. We dispute that, and that's very much the inspiration of a project that we've got with the World Health Organization, CNPM, and a research center in the very middle of the Amazon forest, that is the Mamirawa Institute, working with indigenous people and local communities, creating or suggesting new legal frameworks for ethical collaboration, fair benefit sharing, digitally preserving traditional knowledge, and using AI to integrate the molecular networking program that we've got with traditional knowledge and building a molecular biodiversity map across Brazil. So that's it's a pilot work now, because we didn't receive, you know, it's hard to get money to these kind of things, but we are trying to promote a paradigm shift that I do hope will inspire other nations across the globe, particularly those in the global south. This way of working has caught the attention of the presidency of COP30 that's going to be held in Brazil. And I think that, not that I needed a lot of validation to continue, you know, persevering in what I believe is good and sustainable. But I've been invited to join the COP presidency in thinking new ways of mobilizing different communities and through science. So we can not to teach communities, but to co-create with the communities, to co-develop with them. And for that, we need to change, you know, a bit our perspectives, as I said before, but honor who we are. So that there is this quote that I really like: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And I think that for this kind of integration of, you know, hardcore science technology with genuinely co-creating with the community, we need to think about research leadership that can't exclude the word inclusion. A lot of this program that I've been designing with a Brazilian funding agency has a lot to do with some of the things that were talked before, you know, the human arts, the understanding of the research ecosystem, project design and strategic planning that Amanda has been helping me to think about, harnessing the power of uncertainty and radical transdisciplinarity. There is not you, us, and them. There is the we, and we. That's, I think, the only way we are going to get out of the pickle we are in now. I don't know if you've heard today the whole thing of the 1.5, increasing 1.5 Celsius degrees. We surpassed it. Last year we reached 1.85. We are in uncharted territory when it comes to climate change and sustainability and preservation of life on Earth as we know. So I think that on top of profits, scientific endeavor, and all that, there is something much more essential, that is the perpetuation of life on Earth in a sustainable way. So on that, I'm going to finish with this quote from the book Beloved by Toni Morrison, that is a bit of my guardian angel. So in this book, I'm not going to to set the scene here, but then there was this priestess that told this community of formerly enslaved people that, so she said, she told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine, that if they could not see it, they would not have it. So as I know you're doing in this amazing group, that you keep reimagining, keep testing, and keep transforming leadership, and it will be great to continue learning more with you. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you so much. It was amazing to share my thoughts with you, and I hope it was somehow useful. Thank you.
Excellent presentation. I think it's been very fresh, and we're getting some very interesting perspectives on innovation leadership. So my question is, how do we celebrate the diversity and that we need to bring into innovation? Is it by showcasing across the world how it has been impacting, and especially how to infect the younger minds? I mean, infect may not be the right word, but I'm just saying, is that some of the ways?
So celebrating diversity, and I think that we just need to use the tools we've got today to share the importance of diversity of approach, isn't it, Ajit? I think that once we see, and unfortunately, maybe there is it's a colonized way of going about sharing results. We still need to use the tools we've got today. The tools we've got today is high impact publications. The tools we've got today is like patents. The tools I've got today in something, it's a dimension I didn't say of all that work with natural products. We've got today dozens of new molecules in different stages of the pipeline, 10 of them in the late stages of validation as new drugs. So we do need to show through scientific publications, through sharing different fora, through engagement with industry, and that's something that we do very aggressively with our natural product bank of biomolecules. So yeah, and to show and to have this everyone that contributes to the project as a co-creator. I can't go to local communities, take centuries of knowledge of how to harvest, of how to maintain, how to preserve, take that oil from there with all the knowledge of how they've been using, go to the lab and claim it as my own. And to change the mind of the researchers that perform the research and make them understand from inside out that there's no other way to work. I think that's the job for today for me. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Dr. Maria, thank you. That's very insightful.
Maria, I feel there's more to say in what we've started today. My mind is buzzing, and I think other minds might be buzzing too. So we'll think about how to continue it.
I as always, I trust you completely, Rob. You're going to find a way. Thank you so much.
We'll find a way. Thank you for your talk. A round of applause, all.
Thank you. Wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Karina, do you want to say anything to finish off?
I think you said it all, Rob. And again, a big thank you to Maria for this wonderful talk. Very timely and very inspirational. So great way to launch 2025 with Innovation Leadership SIG at ISPIM.